You want to know how to bottom fish? Here we go. First, let's look at the things you absolutely must have to bottom fish. You need your rod and reel. You need your sinkers, because your sinkers are going to put your bait on the bottom. You need your hooks. I suggest starting with Aberdeen hooks because they're light and they actually can bend if you get a snag, and you can still get your line back. And worms or your bait. Now, the optional items you might want are rod holders. There's two different kinds. One for sticking in the grass. This is the metal one. Or if it's a sandy, looser soil, you might want this version of a rod holder, which is basically a tube. Other optional things are pliers for getting fish off the hook, a net for netting the fish, and a bell which you can put on the end of your rod, and then it'll ring when your rod starts to twitch if you have a fish on. Now, there are three different versions of a bottom rig. The simplest by far is just putting split shot. There's sinkers that you can put on and off of your line, right on your line, and then just have a hook. That is the simplest way. Put some split shot and then a hook. The next option, which actually is my favorite, is use what is called a sliding sinker. That's like an egg sinker or a no roll sinker, which actually goes right on your line. There's a hole through the sinker. You put the sinker on your line, then you put a bead next to a swivel to protect the knot, and then you tie on your hook as the last thing. The third setup, which is very good for actually keeping bait off the bottom, is called the three-way river rig. It's called this way because you put a three-way swivel on. So it first connects to your main line, then you've got your hook. This line to your hook is actually shorter than the line to your sinker. See how long the sinker line is? That's because your hook actually is not on the bottom for the three-way river rig. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each of one of these systems. The advantage to the first one is it's the simplest. Advantage to the second one is that it usually stays in place and stays on the bottom. The advantage to the third one is when you have a three-way river rig, your bait is not on the bottom. The third step to fishing a bottom rig is to find a place to fish. Where I am is at a park that is next to a river. On Google Maps, the easiest way to find a park next to water is to look for green areas. Green areas mean a park where you can publicly access land, and blue is the water. You do not want the satellite view, you want the map setting so you can see green for a park and blue for waterways, and you can bottom fish any place that the shore meets the water. You do not have to use a river. You can bottom fish lakes, you can bottom fish in the ocean. There are several different ways to find the fish, but the easiest way is go to the deepest spot you can fish. Fish tend to hang at the bottom in deeper pools or deeper areas. There are other ways though too where fish might be hanging. Another one is called finding the seam. The seam means where faster water meets slower water. So when you have a current in the water and then a spot where there isn't a current, fish tend to hang out in the seam, which would be the area between the fast and slow moving water, because the fast moving water will bring food to the fish that are working not very hard sitting in the slow water. Another place to fish if you are fishing a river is the bend in a river. Typically when a river makes a turn, there are deeper spots on the curves. If all else fails and you're in a river, just fish the middle of the river. The reason you fish the middle of the river is typically that's where it is the deepest in a river. The last step is, if you catch a fish, this is a little guy, a little black bullhead, know the rules. If you want to keep your fish, make sure that you know the rules and regulations so that you don't break the law and keep something that you should have released. Or if you catch a species, make sure it's the right size. Sometimes there's size limitations. And if you're going to let it go, please be safe. If you're going to touch the fish, get your hand wet. Also know what kind of fish you have. Like this is a bullhead, so if I get poked, it would hurt. So I'm going to use pliers to get it off. Handle the fish as best you can. All right, thanks for watching this bottom fishing special how-to. I strongly suggest trying bottom fishing. It is the best way to catch a variety of species. I have increased the amount of fish I've caught exponentially because I've learned how to bottom fish. Also, bottom fishing is not just for your rough fish or your catfish. You can catch a lot of game fish by bottom fishing. You can use a three-way river rig using live bait to catch game fish. And several game fish like walleye and bass will bite a worm on the bottom. Thanks for watching. Push all the good buttons, like, subscribe, all those things, and I'll see you on the water. What do you think about that? I want freedom. All right, I gotta let him go.